this video, we are going to look at how to remove a figure from an image. So in this case, we have this picture of a person presumably taking pictures of these ducks or a mountain in this image, and we are going to want to remove him or her from this image. Now, there are a few ways to do this. In this one, we are going to use some of the tools such as the healing brushes and the clone stamp that are built into Photoshop as a way to create a mask that will cover this person up. So the first thing I want to do, because I don't want to destroy my image here, is I'm going to create a new layer called layer 1. I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to call this cover, something like that, and background. Now I'm going to zoom in on my figure, so I'm going to grab the zoom tool here, and pressing and holding spacebar, I can kind of center to get where I want to be. And the first thing I want to do is go ahead and I'm going to start trying to remove the figure by covering her up. So the clone stamp tool is more or less an advanced way to do copy and paste. By selecting a target by pressing and holding Alt or Option, you can see we get these little crosshairs. This lets us select our source for where we are going to copy from. And then the big circle here, this is going to be the brush that allows us to paint, essentially, the copy to on here. Now, when doing this destructively, so we'll talk about, I would start by doing this all on this one layer. However, to do this non-destructively, there are some options up here that I'm going to have to change. So making sure that I'm on this blank layer here, if I poke the eye, you'll see it's just the checkerboard. I have sample current layer right now. I'm going to say all layers, or current and below will work the same in this case because they are the same. So with sample all layers, I'm now going to be able to not only copy from the current layer I'm on, but then also every other layer. So by pressing and holding the Option key, I'm going to start erasing this figure. I'm going to start over here. I'm going to click, so pressing and holding Option, press click. Click the mouse. And we'll see that the center of my brush changes now. And now I have this very hazy, this is about my source right here, this very hazy image of what is happening over here that I can put over here. Now, when I click, a little plus sign we'll see shows up to the left of this circle, and I drag across and let go. And it works just like a paintbrush. So I'm able to go through and paint out this part. I can do that again. I could click and drag. Now, something to think about while you're doing something like this is that the human eye is built to look for patterns. So the last thing I want, because we'll notice if I click and hold, let's say I have this duck here, the last thing I want is something where I have selected and copied and pasted accidentally the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to undo, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z. Because the last thing I want is this. I am going to hold my finger on Option, and every so often, anytime I do a run like this, I'm going to press Option again and select a different place. And I might go as far as there this time. I'm going to select something over here. Because what we want to do is we want to randomize the way that our pattern comes in. So now I'll click down here. And trying to kind of keep the light right, I might even click all the way over here and click over here. Now, at this point, we're going to run into an issue that as I get towards this bench here, I'm going to start accidentally painting over it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and grab the object selection tool, and I am going to go back to my background, and I'm going to select by clicking and dragging around that. Whoops. Do that. Let's try that again. Object selection tool, like that. And I'm going to press and hold Shift. Move this out of the way. I'm going to press and hold Shift here, and I am going to select this as well. So, with these two selected, I can now go up to Select, Inverse. And what I've done, essentially, is I've masked this out so that now, when I go back to my cover, making sure that I'm back on my cover before I start doing anything with the clone stamp, I can now select my target here, and even though it shows this over it, notice that when I click, it doesn't do anything because I've actually masked out that spot. I'm going to keep going here. Sometimes I might need to size this down a little bit. I can work a little closer here. And like that, our figure is almost completely gone. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and deselect. And by pressing Command or Control and the number 0, snap back here. And we'll see that we now have a pretty decently hidden person. Now, one of the last things we might want to do is kind of clean up some of this area in here where we have some lines and things that don't look quite right. Something like the Spot Healing Brush tool, the letter J on the keyboard here. This is going to let us blur and move things around. I'm going to size this up in such a way, whoops, that when I scribble on here, so I'm clicking and dragging, whoops, and it looks like we are sampling all layers right now. So let's go to Sample All Layers again. And what this is going to do is this is going to kind of let us blur and blend. Zoom in here. Blur and blend such that we don't have a lot of hard lines between where maybe I copied from different places. And so when I zoom out now, maybe I'll even zoom in and I'll do some of this. Now this tool does have some drawbacks, so we can see here, where we're going to have a little bit of blurring, a little bit of strange sampling sometimes. If we get, for instance, too close to this duck up here, whoops, took the duck out that time, it might sometimes sample around, and it can actually start to do, here we go, things like this, where you'll start getting sampled from above here, down here. Actually clean that up there. Make sure I didn't do too much here. So Command-Shift-Z to redo. Command-0 or Control-0 gets us back here. And this, again, is a fairly convincingly removed person. And because this was done non-destructively, I can click on this eye here, and the person immediately reappears. And the last thing I'd want to do is save this as a Photoshop document.